Hi there. We're talking court cases involving Cochise County officials in one capacity or another. Tom Crosby and Rob Montgomery. Both are seeking dismissals in their cases for very different charges. Terry Jo Neff is joining us here today to explain everything about this case and everything else about the county and the courts, as it were. Terry Jo, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Well, so Tom Crosby, we know he's a felony indictment. His case is coming up. Let's start with him. What's going on there in his case?
Sure. So Supervisor Tom Crosby could go to trial as early as May up in Maricopa County. He's charged with 2 felonies related to election interference regarding the fact that he did not vote to canvass the 2022 general election results by the November 28, 2022 deadline. He is now, for the second time, trying to get his charges dismissed completely. And this time he's come up with some rather interesting arguments. One is he's charged with conspiracy, but nowhere in any of the evidence that's been provided to him and his attorneys does it say who he conspired with. So there has to be somebody else. You can't just conspire by yourself. So the fact that the Attorney General's office has not provided any information on who they allege his co-conspirator was, he wants to see that charge gone.
Is it not Peggy Judd?
It is not.
Not David Stevens?
It is nobody as far as we know. And when Peggy Judd took her plea deal, because she was indicted as well on 2 felonies, she took a class 3 misdemeanor plea deal, and it included the dismissal of her conspiracy charge. So nobody has been convicted of conspiracy, and there's nobody indicated as who Tom Crosby's co-conspirator might be. So that's the first charge. The second one, the class 5 felony, alleges that Tom Crosby engaged in election interference against the duties of the then Arizona Secretary of State, who was Katie Hobbs, our now governor. But the problem is, Katie Hobbs is not on the Attorney General's witness list for trial. So if her duties were interfered with, the best person to come and talk about that in front of a jury is going to be the victim, Katie Hobbs.
Okay.
But she's not being called as a witness. And so Tom Crosby's attorneys say, you can't just bring someone else in and say, here's why I think Katie Hobbs was interfered with. That's hearsay.
Right. So I guess it's almost the state, they could say, even though not necessarily the Secretary of State.
No,
but
the indictment actually states that she was the election official who was interfered with.
So are they going to call Katie Hobbs as a witness?
They can't, because they've not listed her already. And we're this close to trial. By now, you've had to disclose who all of your different witnesses are going to be. Obviously, Tom Crosby's attorneys don't want to call her, because then that opens up to where she could say something. So the fact that the state is not calling her, Tom Crosby's attorneys believe is a fatal flaw, and he's asking for everything to be gone.
Why did it take so long to get to this point?
There's a process. Witnesses don't have to be named right at the very beginning. You have different times to do that. Also, as far as the conspiracy charge, again, who those conspirators might have been with Tom Crosby, there's been time for the Attorney General's office to figure that out. Now we're getting down where Tom Crosby is going to have a court hearing April 21st. That trial could start as soon as the first week in May, if there's any Maricopa County judge that has 2 weeks open. So it's kind of put up or shut up time for the Attorney General's office.
So putting up, what would that look like for them?
They would have to put forth who Tom Crosby conspired with and what evidence there is of that, which they have not disclosed since November of 23 when they indicted him. That's kind of a question. That's not exactly ethical to sit back on evidence that you have.
Okay. So let's turn the page to Rob Montgomery. His case kind of tangentially related in a way, in that it's involving the quote fake electors tied to the 2020 presidential outcome. He was the Cochise County Republican head. You can tell us a little bit, just give us a little bit of background on how we got there with him.
Sure. So what happened is, everyone knows there was, an effort in Arizona to challenge the fact that maybe Donald Trump really did not lose Arizona. And so some folks within the Arizona Republican Party talked with Donald Trump's campaign and a lot of different officials, and they came up with this idea. And this idea was, we're going to have all 11 of the Republican presidential electors, their names are all on a ballot, they're real, come in, we're going to sign a statement that we're going to cast our votes for Donald Trump if, in fact, Donald Trump is declared the winner. The problem is there's a few little words missing here or there, but folks like Rob Montgomery simply showed up. They were called by the head of the AZ GOP. Please come up to Phoenix in December of 2020, sign this statement, and we're going to mail it off to Washington, D.C. so that it's there. Rob is charged with 9 felonies. One of those is a Class 2 felony. A Class 2 felony, Matt, is things like manslaughter, sexual abuse of small children. It's a very serious charge he's facing. And what he has done, Rob is represented by public defenders out of Maricopa County. They just recently filed a very interesting motion. They want the indictment, the 9 charges, dismissed. They're agreeing that maybe it can go back to a grand jury and start over. But their argument is the Attorney General's office, again, Chris May's office, used the expression fake electors more than 250 times in 12 days of testimony. And that is just the prosecutor and the Attorney General's special agent. That's not any other witnesses. Just the state folks use that expression. And again, we can say that they're fake electors because they really weren't the final ones, but their names are on the ballots. They're not fake in the sense that we would think made up.
So it's kind of a semantic thing. I mean, it's something that got into the media and not went outside of Arizona.
Right. It was national news everywhere. And one of the problems is with the grand jury is supposed to be finding out, is there probable cause that a crime was committed and a specific person committed it? So, for instance, if you were going to go in as a prosecutor to the grand jury and you're telling the grand jury, I want you to indict this person for child molestation, okay, of a young child. And this person's never been arrested, never been charged before, and you keep using the term pedophile during your presentation, you're kind of tainting that grand jury. And it's the same argument with the fake electors, that by over and over saying fake electors, those grand jurors were kind of given the impression by the prosecutor, oh, they've done something wrong.
But if you were, total hypothetical to hear in Rodeo Town, if you were prosecuting an accused pedophile, wouldn't you use that term? I mean, aren't you as the prosecutor leaning in that way anyway?
But to say someone is a pedophile is a statement of fact. You're in front of the grand jury for them to decide if there's a factual basis to move forward. So you have to be careful what you say about people when you're doing a grand jury presentation. It's different than a trial. So we could very well see Rob Montgomery have his indictment kicked out, and then the Attorney General's office has to decide, do we go back to a new grand jury and present this all over again?
Sounds like that would be pretty unlikely.
Pretty unlikely, especially because like 2 or 3 of the other folks that were indicted, Rob basically just got the phone call and went up there. Not saying that what he did was right, but there was an attorney present in the room for the AZ GOP. You're there, you've got your organization's attorney, he's saying sign here. Can you prove to a jury that he committed a crime?
Right. Okay, well, 2 very interesting cases there involving Cochise County officials. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Keep reading Terry Jo Neff's work in the Herald Review, myheraldreview.com. That'll do it for us on this topic. Tune in for other topics that we're going to tackle here in just a second. So thanks for tuning in and have a great day.